And we're live. Hello, hello. Hi,
Hello,
Kirsten.
we're back. Hello, hello. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Good, good. Looking forward to our conversation because I really like this one. As number four starts with a word that is called skillfully. So, yeah, now we've revealed a bit already about what we're going to do today, and that is we're going to take no, plus one on our EMCC journey and look at the now standard number four, which is called building the relationship. And this building the relationship as a way of defining it, it says skillfully builds and maintains an effective relationship with the client and where appropriate with the sponsor. So for me, that's the reason why I'm saying I'm really excited about this because I like this word of brought in there saying skillfully, and maybe we'll explore that one a bit further. Our aim for today, as usual, look at what the standard is all about, understand how it gets reflected in the different stages of EMCC accreditations. And the third thing, saying, looking at how can we bring this kind of a standard within the reflection that we do for the accreditation process. In case anyone wants to know more about the previous standards, just go back on either on the LinkedIn or Facebook page because they're still saved in there, or directly on the YouTube channel because then you have them one after another. And on the YouTube channel, you have a full playlist also on the ICF core competencies explained. So if you want to look at them. Houston, I think we've set the stage. I think we can start with, first of all, exploring what is this standard all about.
So, building the relationship, I think, is a really important standard. And in ICF competences, we have a whole group, um, effective relationships with the client. So, there are many things that can fall under this heading. But I think what is the most important here is that in psychotherapy and also in coaching research, you can see that the relationship between coach and client is one of the most important predictors for the success of therapy or coaching. And in um, psychotherapy, you have the Heart and Soul of Change, which is a very old but still relevant meta study by, I think it is Duncan, Miller, and Hubble. And in the coaching world, it is Eric Dehan, I think he's called Eric Dehan or Han. Anyway, he is the researcher who is mostly interested in effectiveness of coaching, and he's come to similar conclusions that the relationship between coach and client is one of the most important predictors for the success of what is happening. So that's why it's really important for us as coaches to be able to skillfully build and maintain effective relationships. Um, Again, I'm a little bit in two minds about it because I think that if you try too hard to build a relationship
Mm.
and you do a lot of things in order to build the relationship and you focus on these things, for example, um, always repeating exactly what the client said or something like that,
Mm.
you just annoy the client. So sometimes our effort to build a relationship can get in the way of us actually building the relationship because we are in our own heads by wanting to build this relationship and while doing all sorts of things that the client doesn't know anything about. And we're not with the client as human beings. So I think skillfully building the relationship is not about what you do necessarily, but more about who you are, what your stance is in coaching. If you
Mm.
regard the client as resourceful and whole, if you know that the client has everything it takes to develop whatever they want to develop, if you trust yourself and the client that something wonderful will emerge from this conversation between you and the client, and if you're not driven by a lot of, oh, I have to create
Mm.
value, I have to create all that stuff in your head, will actually get in the way of building a good relationship, I think. And so, again, it's one of these conundrums where we're basically saying, try, but don't try. So,
Mm.
It's like, I don't know, isn't there like a Yoda, um, there is no try, just do. So maybe for building the relationship, it's there is no build, just be. And and you can see that in I might be a little bit in disagreement with the EMCC standards here, because it is very much about controlling my behavior. And I think it's not really about controlling my behavior, but it's about just trusting the client, being having, yeah, positive regard for the
Mm,
client, um, being clear that this is about the client, not about me. Um, in if you look at the different levels in the core standards, we have at foundation level explains how own behaviors can affect the mentoring and coaching process. So I think that is something you need for everything in coaching. You need to somehow be able, I mean, you cannot know 100% how your behavior is going to affect anything, but at least you can have a really good guess. So knowing that if you constantly interrupt your client, they're probably not going to feel comfortable. Mm, yeah. Okay. So those are some basics that you need. Then treating all people with respect and maintaining client dignity. And then here it says, it describes and applies at least one method of building rapport. And there I would say, don't do methods. Don't do methods of building rapport. Just
he
be
was it before.
supportive of the client. I mean, hey, we've learned that in kindergarten, how to be friendly to another person, right? I mean, use language that the client can relate to, obviously. And that's the one that I really like. Develops trust through keeping commitments and being non-judgmental with a client. And then the practitioner level goes further and says demonstrates empathy and genuine support for the client. So in foundation, we're not judgmental. In the step further, it would be demonstrating empathy and genuine support. And also being able to gauge whether we have enough trust to be able to treat, for example, tricky subjects, to be able to gauge, is this a question? Might this be something that the client wants to talk about, or maybe not? Also,
Mm,
um, working effectively with clients' emotional states. And again, I don't think you have to work with them. It's just a matter of being able to accept that people have emotions. That just happens. And not necessarily feeling the urge to do something about that. I think that's for me, that is much more masterful, than feeling that I need to respond. Let's say a client is crying. I don't have to do anything with that. It can be. And then when the time is right and you feel that, you just offer, would you like to go on? Would you like a tissue? Would you like, how would you like me to respond? Without assuming that if somebody's crying, they need a hug or a pat on the back or a tissue, whatever. Everybody's different when they're crying, right? So I don't know. When I'm crying, I just want you to not notice me. But other people are different. I know that. And then adapting our language and behavior to accommodate the client's style while maintaining a sense of self. I love that one.
mm,
Because we do use our client's language, but let's say we're coaching a young person who's using tons of swear words. Well, maybe we wouldn't, unless we also naturally use lots of swear words. Maybe we wouldn't do that. And also ensuring clients' non-dependence on the mentor coach. And I think that is a very important bit of building the relationship, because we want to look at what kind of relationship do we want to build with a client. A supportive one that helps the client grow by themselves. And my husband tells a story of someone who was coached and who basically just delegated or relegated all responsibility on their coach, and the coach told them what to do, and that's what they did. And that's really not coaching. That's something else. And I don't think that should happen. So ensuring that the client does not become dependent on your emotional support, on your advice, or whatever. And then at senior practitioner level, it's about even higher levels of attentiveness and responsiveness to the client, and being in the moment. So being able to respond to the client how they are in the moment, but having this goal, this vision of what they want at the same time, and being able to navigate what is happening now and what does the client want in general from the coaching relationship. And the mastery description is again one I don't really agree with. Able to describe their tactics in response to the client's sensory signals at every moment of a coaching conversation. I think that's a bit of, don't want to use a swear word here, but you can imagine one right now. Because in a sense, if you give me a recording of me coaching, I can always make up a story in my mind why I did what I did when I did it. But these are all confabulations. This is all something that I'm doing in retrospect, and I'm probably even making myself sound better and nicer than I actually am. When I'm coaching, I'm in the situation with my client, and I'm not using tactics. I'm not being strategic. I'm partnering with my clients. I have tons of ideas of where we could look. So I could say, would you like to go here? Or would you like to go, which is there, whatever. And I know that it makes more sense, for example, to look at what the client wants than looking at what the client doesn't want. And I'll have ideas of where I'm going to invite my client to, but these are not tactics. Again, I'm not a craftsman who uses tools. That's objectifying human beings. I don't think we should do that. I think we should look at having a conversation that has a good chance of being useful. But whether this being useful is good for the client or not good for the client would always depend on the client's responses. And there we come back to the description at senior practitioner level demonstrates a high level of attentiveness and responsiveness to the client. So in a sense, coach education and coaching is not a 19th century jam factory where you put strawberries in, you go woo, 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 and strawberry jam comes out. It is much more an emergent system. It is much more like, I don't know, if you could say an example might be billiard. Yes, you can calculate. Yeah, you go and calculate where all the balls will go if you are in a physics mind. But in the moment, you cannot calculate it. And I would even go so far to say that it is not a complicated system. It is a complex system where we can only sort of extrapolate in retrospect what happened, but we can never know in the moment what is going to happen. Sorry again for being a little bit controversial here. You can disagree with me. You can throw tomatoes and eggs in my direction. I am very willing to hold different standpoints and hold different viewpoints on this. But yeah, so I think in summary, don't build a relationship. Be the assume and have this not knowing coaching stance, and then build your mastery by being ever more responsive and flexible and centering the client, and knowing that everything you do is going to be an experiment and not something that you can know the outcome of in advance. So nice as
Mm.
it would be to have a jam factory for coaching. You turn on the buttons, you go, okay, well, HR comes and you go, bad leader in, coaching, good leader out. Doesn't work that way.
I think with this, you're demystifying also the say the thought of you apply a coach to a leader and he's going to be the most brilliant leader after that in one
Very
shot.
easy. Money in, click, click, click. No, this one goes. No, maybe not.
Mm, maybe, yeah. And that, you know what I appreciate about this part of this now going through or walk through the standard. It's the fact that there in there so many things like put in a jar that in a way on one side there are elements that attend to different coaching styles and coaching approaches, and there's some of them that seem very narrow and very fixed to a certain type of how you should work with the client, like you were saying, I have to define very precisely. On the other hand, what I always look at is, are those words they've been used in the description serving the purpose of trying to explain, oh, where should we go and how should we grow as coaches.
Mm.
So when you were talking about the master practitioner level, I was wondering if it's exactly like you say, is tactics serving us? Is that a word that we use when we talk about fluid and very co-constructive conversation? I'm not 100% sure. So I'd rather see it as a process where I have a chance to reflect after and make sure that I also, as a coach, learn from what I've done with the client. How have we worked until now? And what else can I do to accommodate maybe better their needs, but not as a tactic, but just learning about myself at the same time. So having it as a double role towards my own development as a coach.
I think
So,
to mastery, if you're really looking at mastery of building a relationship, I would say is able to integrate feedback, even constructive feedback, from the client as to how they would like the relationship to be. Um, is able to build relationship with a diverse audience, for example. That for me would be more in the direction of mastery. So you can coach to people who are very different from you and generate meaning and yeah, um, I don't want to say output or but just generate value out of the diversity of between you and the client, and then instead of describing the tactics, I would say being able to reflect on how you build relationship and enter this cycle, continuous cycle of learning.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. Well, we went now towards looking how we can take that plus one so from the description of
But
the
since me
standard.
and you, so I guess the experts who did that don't know if they want to revamp it. I don't think so, but
But it brings a nice space for a conversation. So whoever just listened to us or they're going to see the recording or in any kind of form read this number four and said, what does this mean? And you want to have a conversation upon it. I think that's what we would be more than happy to. Just either drop us a note, put a comment, and join us at a meetup. I know that we had at least two people saying hello this morning in our live. So saying hello back because they're two people that we really appreciate also. And next time we look at the number five, we move one more competency ahead. Um, we're getting close to the end of it. And next time, I think it's a bit linked because it's called enabling insight and learning. So build the relationship. Now we're also supporting the client to discover something. If there's questions upfront to that competency, just put them in the comment. and we'll pick them up. Or other areas that you would like us to move, as we're getting now close to the end of the individual coaching standards. We'll have a plan to move into the team coaching competencies, but if there's any other topics, more than happy. Kirsten, thank you so much. See each other next week then.
Bye bye bye.
Bye.